order the meeting February 13th of the South Carolina Public Charter School District, which services Charleston too. I'd like to call on Dexter Davis to lead us in our invocation.
We bow our heads. Kids first. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, if we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thou is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Kids
Amen.
first.
And we will now have the Pledge of Allegiance by Jonathan Butcher.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now, Dr. Billy Strickland will give us a position and mission statement, which he claimed that he has memorized, but I don't really necessarily buy that. So the words are right there for you as well.
Okay, I'll read those so
Okay.
I don't show anybody else.
Okay, show us up.
The position statement, the South Carolina Public Charter School District embraces its state-appointed role as the distinct authorizer of public charter school statewide. Our mission says the South Carolina Public Charter School District authorizes, supports, and champions innovative K-12 public charter schools, ensuring quality educational opportunities for parents and academic excellence for students, so every South Carolina child can reach their highest potential.
Thank you. Thank you. And now Secretary Dexter Davis will call the roll.
Jonathan Butcher.
Here.
Dexter W.J. Davis here. Stephen Gilchrist.
I'm present.
Kip Miller.
Here.
Madam Chair.
Here?
Dr. Pope.
Here.
Dr. Strickland.
Here.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda, I would like to take each item separately. It doesn't take much time to do that at all, and then we know we've covered it. Approval of the agenda for today's meeting, February 13th. We need a motion and a second to approve the agenda for today's meeting.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Questions? If not, hearing none, we will put it to a vote. All in favor of approval of the agenda for today's meeting indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, thank you. Next, we will proceed with approval of the minutes from the January 9th, 2025 meeting. We need
moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we will now put it to vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do we have any public comments at this time?
Madam Chair, we don't have any.
Thank you. Informational items. Are there any informational items to cover? Now we will move toward the issue of executive session. I understand that we had some discussion on year zero schools, and we would need a motion to go into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We'll be back. February meeting of the Board of the South Carolina Public Charter School District is now back in session. In executive session, we took no votes and no, bottom line, no votes. We will now move into item 10, action items. We have 5 items to discuss today and hear presentations on, and the first will be Felton Lab Charter School Renewal Contract. Kristen Farmer, Chief of Authorization and Development.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Trustees, please draw your attention to action item A. At the January 9th, 2025 board meeting, you approved the renewal application from Felton Lab Charter School. Today, we are seeking your approval of the renewal contract effective July 1st, 2025. A copy of the signed contract is included in your board folder. We respectfully request the board's approval of the contract and ask the board to entertain a motion to grant Chair Mosteller approval to sign the renewal contract for Felton Lab Charter School. Thank you.
Thank you. We need a motion and a second to approve the Felton Laboratory Charter School contract as recommended by staff.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We will now call for any questions, discussions as she continues. Any questions by the board? I have a question. I was impressed in section 3 on page 2. It's an opportunity just to articulate from Chris or you, whomever, the vast responsibility that this district has in the issue of special ed. In the issue of special ed, section 3, sponsor school relationship, 3.1. It's on page 2. And I think we'd all benefit for a minute to just know the extent of our responsibility, because they really put us at the head of that train.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you or our superintendent, whomever would like to address that, I think it would be enlightening for us all.
Yeah, so at this time, what I'll do is call Emily Baker up and have her just explain what our LEA responsibility is as it pertains to special education services and law.
So as the LEA, we ensure that all of our schools meet all the federal and state requirements for special education. So every service that a student would get in a traditional district, they have access to those through our schools as well. So our SPED team, Susan Howard, Wendy Ward, Ariel Eves, Betty Freeman support all of our schools directly with their needs as they come up. So overall compliance and any specific needs they have to meet students where they are.
Any questions pertinent to this?
Let me just ask a question about that. So if a school is struggling with, let's say they get into their school year and they're having a struggle with their funding to access a special ed coordinator, whatever. Is there something that we do at the state to help with that in the interim?
So schools receive IDEA funds.
Yeah.
Federal funds for their special education. The majority of those funds are typically used for salaries to fund the school level, but we would always step in. If it's not something we can support with, we guide them to third-party services that they can access. So if schools don't have the capacity, they will contract with others that are able to step in and support them.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'd like to add to that. That's why several schools will hire part-time, not even full-time staff to meet those positions because they can't afford it.
Yes, that's true, depending on the needs in front of them. An example is like speech-language pathology is a high need in the elementary schools, but not necessarily in the middle and high schools. So a middle or high school may contract with an SLP to provide those services because it doesn't make sense to have a full-time person do those things.
Just if I may,
Yes,
just
yes.
follow up on that.
Yes.
So if a school is a Title I school, right, would they qualify to have Medicaid or something to help provide some of those services?
So yes, our schools are able to build Medicaid. We're actually having our QA audit today, so send good vibes to Dee Drayton. They're here in our office. But yes, our schools, Title I or non-Title I, any school has access to Medicaid billing for their school-level services if they so choose. We currently have 9 schools that are have a contract with us to bill for Medicaid services.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? I had one other quick question. Just to respond to this sentence, the sponsor shall offer appropriate technical assistance to the school in satisfying state submission, reporting requirements. So this is a pretty intense obligation and requirement. How is staff, how are we feeling about it? How do you think we're doing?
John and I tag team this one.
I mean, and it also, I will say this, it's a privilege to be able to serve these children. It's a special, it's a tearing up privilege. Do you know what I mean? It's a privilege. So, and I know your hearts feel like that.
Is your question pertaining to the service and the reporting for special education or in general?
In general.
So we kind of have a twofold approach. One is sort of on the data and the systems bits of those. So we provide a lot of technical assistance to our schools with respect to PowerSchool. What are the required fields? We also have visibility and oversight of a platform called Level Data that will identify when schools have missing or incorrect data in there. So we have all of those supports. Josh Finley, our Director of Data and Accountability, I think probably speaks at least once a day with a PowerSchool administrator in one or more of our schools, providing technical assistance, and of course we also do that through the context of our Canty partners. So we do provide a lot of technical assistance and support, but also looking through the data and ensuring that the data are accurate, because the data implicate not only funding, report card results, and really what the community knows and understands. So if bad data go in, bad data will come out. So we have to be committed to making sure that students and all that information is coded correctly and actually reflects the progress that children may be making for us to better support them.
Yeah, thank you.
On the programmatic side, our technical assistance is layered based on the school's capacity. So we have some schools that have very high capacity in certain areas and they're self-sufficient. My philosophy with our team is to get in the school, grow capacity, and get out, because we want them to be independent and sustainable. But that attrition is probably the thing that hurts us the most, excuse me, with the programmatic side of things. So our support is tiered. If you're a veteran and you're self-sufficient, our support looks less by design. But if you are brand new, we want to grow your capacity. So our check-ins with those schools are very small, if not independent. So it just kind of depends on where our schools are. Clemson was here last week, and I was telling them when they were preparing to facilitate a training that we have all ends of the spectrum across our portfolio. We have veterans to novices, and so you kind of have to, all of the PD that we offer and all the support that we offer meet someone where they are, so that they can become, their capacity can grow.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Now back to our format. We have a motion and a second. Any other further questions or deliberations? Hearing none, we will now put the motion to a vote. All in favor of the support for the Felton Lab Charter School Renewal contract, please indicate by saying yes.
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 Any opposed? No. Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. Next, we have Lakes and Bridges Charter School Goal Amendment.
Okay, action item B. As part of the district's accountability framework, the AFO Index, PCSD authorizing staff encourages schools to review and revise their charter goals to ensure they are rigorous, measurable, and aligned with baseline data. Schools have the flexibility to design goals that best reflect student progress and growth, with a recommendation to include goals related to academic excellence and closing the achievement gap. Lakes and Bridges Charter School, an alternative education campus, or AEC, which serves 1st through 8th grade students with dyslexia and related language-based learning challenges, has proposed revising its charter goals to better reflect student growth rather than solely relying on achievement. After participating in the district's goal workshop in October and through collaboration with district staff and internal discussions among school leadership, Lakes and Bridges identified a need for goals that acknowledge significant student progress even when students remain below grade level. The revised goals include increasing the percentage of students meeting their growth projections on NWEA MAP growth assessments in English language arts and mathematics, strengthening instructional supports through a tiered intervention model, including reading and math coaching and a multi-tiered system of supports, enhancing oral reading fluency through a curriculum-based measure and oral reading fluency norms. These goals allow for ongoing evaluation and instructional adjustments to better serve Lakes and Bridges student population. PCSD staff respectfully recommends the PCSD Board of Trustees approve the goal revision amendment for Lakes and Bridges Charter School. Thank you.
Thank you. We need a motion and a second to approve the Lakes and Bridges Charter School Goal Amendment as recommended by staff.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or any questions, discussion?
I have one, Madam Chair. It
Yes.
says that we authorize staff to encourage all schools to review and, if needed, revise their goals to ensure their rigorous academic goals be attained. How often do schools actually do this? And is this an ongoing effort to remind the schools to revise their goals?
It is an ongoing effort. We are consistently working with schools, and we are, in fact, John is going to talk about it in his update, but we are holding another workshop with Dr. Kelly Pugh to encourage our schools to come in and really analyze their data and develop some achievable and rigorous charter goals. And we've
Yeah.
triaged our schools as well.
Yeah, I'll also add that, we've been really intentionally focused on this the last 3 years since John came on board, of really looking at every one of our schools' charters and working with Dr. Kelly Pugh and our team to really design goals that are SMART goals, where we can really measure their performance. What we discovered through an audit of our charters from the past is many of our schools just do not have SMART goals in their charters. A lot of it is just flowery language that you really can't measure, I'll say. And we're not going to close the achievement gap, and we're not going to improve performance at the local school level if they don't have real goals in their charters. So, but this has been a very collaborative process, and I think it really goes to our accountability framework and how we're going to hold schools accountable to their performance and under the law.
Well said.
Yes, and in addition to that, school leadership, as they come in here, are really holding the leadership to be accountable to that. That should start with the school leadership. There should be daily collaboration, if not, class to class, right? Some of our best performing charter schools collaborate all the time, and then they just bring it to their board. So some of this has to be the onus on who they hire to be in their classrooms.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I will add additionally that, that's one of the things that John S. Payne is working on, and it's that school board relations, because at the end of the day, the school board is who we have the contract with. And educating them about that technical assistance that the district provides, what their roles and responsibilities are as a board, and then ensuring that their charter has SMART goals in it. That their school leader is going to comply with. And so, but that's an educational effort, and it takes relationship building, and that's what John's been doing, is traveling the state, meeting with these board chairs, and it's surprising how many of them have never even read the Charter Act. Because all of those things in that contract are in the Charter Act. That's where they come from. We didn't just make it up.
Yeah. And let me ask you this question. Wouldn't you say it's the case that this concept of the batch amendment process has really helped so you can take smaller bites more often? Is that the case?
Absolutely.
And has been awareness, there's not a time disconnect between awareness and micro action? Is that kind of the case?
Yes, it's definitely allowed us to really streamline our process and encourage schools
Yeah.
to revise.
That's just great. Okay, any other questions? So we have a motion and a second on the floor. We will now put the motion to a vote. All in favor to approve the motion to approve Lakes and Bridges Charter School Gold Amendment as recommended by staff. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, thank you. Thank you. We will now move on to Hope City Charter School application denial.
Yes, please draw your attention to action item C. Hope City Charter School submitted a letter of intent, or LOI, to establish a charter school under the South Carolina Public Charter School District on November 1st, 2024. Despite receiving newsletters, resources, and an invitation to our PCSD pre-applicant training on November 18th, 2024, no representatives from the school responded or attended. On January 27th, 2025, an application was submitted through the South Carolina Department of Education, or SCDE portal, naming the PCSD as its intended sponsor. However, a review of the application revealed that it consistently referenced Richland School District 2 as its key partner and charter management organization, with no mention of the PCSD beyond listing it as its sponsor on the cover page. Upon receipt of the charter application from the SCDE, PCSD staff contacted the applicant for clarification. The founding committee chair confirmed that the application was, in fact, inadvertently submitted to the PCSD instead of Richland School District 2. Given this misalignment, PCSD staff formally notified the SCDE and Richland School District 2 on January 29th, 2025. The school is proceeding with its application before Richland School District 2. Out of an abundance of caution, PCSD staff respectfully recommends that the Board of Trustees deny the charter application submitted by Hope City Charter School for the 2025 application cycle due to the applicant's intent to seek authorization from a different sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you. We need a motion and a second, and I'll use her words, to respectfully deny the Hope City School application as recommended by staff.
Motion to accept staff recommendation.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, discussions?
Madam Chair, I just have one question, just maybe, this is maybe for the attorney. It stated that they inadvertently submitted this. So does that fall, what's the difference between withdrawing it and denying it? Is there a reason why we had to use the terminology deny rather than withdraw because it was inadvertently submitted?
Well, we don't have the ability to withdraw it. We communicated with the school and we communicated with the department, and there was just a lot of confusion around it. There's not really a process directly to withdraw from the department, and so we just went ahead and proceeded with this out of an abundance of caution. In theory, they could have, I suppose, withdrawn it, but then that creates some question about whether they're withdrawing it from the portal. This seemed like it's easier to treat them, in our view, as if they submitted two applications rather than risk them withdrawing the application and there being confusion that they have withdrawn from everybody.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yeah. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Okay.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions? If not, the chair, we will now put the motion to a vote. Did you want to say anything? Okay. Now, we will now put the motion to a vote. All in favor of respectfully denying this application, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. The chair announces the motion carries. Okay, good. Good. Now we're going to move to Palmetto Career Academy recommendation. Kristen again.
Yes.
Yes.
Action item D. On February 1st, 2024, Palmetto Career Academy, or PCA, submitted a charter application to the South Carolina Public Charter School District. On April 18th, 2024, the PCSD Board of Trustees approved PCA to open in Hartsville, serving grades 6 through 9. PCSD staff collaborated closely with the founding committee throughout the summer leading up to Year Zero training. In the fall of 2024, however, PCA became increasingly unresponsive and did not participate in the second or third charter academies, nor did they submit required pre-opening conditions in January. On January 28, 2025, PCSD Superintendent Neely issued a notice of special review for PCA. To date, the school has been unresponsive to district inquiries, including the special review notice. PCSD staff recommends that the Board of Trustees issue a notice of revocation effective May 1, 2025, to the charter of Palmetto Career Academy due to multiple critical failures in meeting pre-opening requirements, governance responsibilities, and district oversight expectations. PCSD staff undertook a special review. Key findings from the special review include failure to attend required training. PCA board members did not attend the mandatory Charter Academy workshops in November 2024 or January 2025, despite multiple reminders from PCSD staff. A lack of response to district oversight. PCA board members were unresponsive to communication from PCSD between November 2024 and January 2025. Board resignations. The board chair and registered agent both resigned without securing replacements, leaving governance in question. A failure to submit pre-opening conditions. PCA did not submit required documentation, including a signed lease, enrollment procedures, and a marketing summary by the January 15th, 2025 deadline. Failure to respond to district communication. PCA did not acknowledge or respond to a special review notification from Superintendent Neely, nor did it provide a plan to address missing requirements. Based on the totality of information, and given that PCA has not fulfilled its pre-opening conditions and has been unresponsive to PCSD inquiries, district staff recommends that the Board of Trustees proceed with a notice of revocation for Palmetto Career Academy effective May 1st, 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. We need a motion and a second to approve the Palmetto Career Academy recommendation as presented by staff, and I want to say the verbiage of staff. The Public Charter School District staff recommend that the Public Charter School District Board of Trustees proceed with a notice of revocation for Palmetto Career Academy effective as of May 1st, 2025. We need a motion and a second to approve that. Thank you.
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, discussions? Okay, yes, anything, okay. Okay, and hearing none, we will put the motion to a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you very much. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, wait a minute. Now, let me see what we have here. Yeah, just the financial report. That was quick. Over there, that quick. Now we have the facts of the matter. When we hear the financial report, we always know we're getting just the facts. And I look forward to hearing that from Nick Michael, Deputy Superintendent of Financial Services. Thank you, Nick.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. At the end of December, we expect 50% of the general fund budget to remain. We are currently at 50.92%. If you flip over to page 2 of my report, this is the district-wide income statement, which includes general fund state aid to classroom revenue transferred to our schools. State aid to classrooms is the majority of state revenue our schools receive. Through December 31st, the district received over $99.5 million in revenue, with total expenditures of over $99.5 million, which equals a net gain of $36,626. Of the revenue received, over $96.9 million was sent to our schools under the state aid to classrooms line and for any that participate in the South Carolina retirement system. Our focus continues to be advocating for additional state funding since our schools don't receive local tax support. Flipping over to page 3, this report is the income statement for the district office only, which includes only general fund revenue recorded for our state mandated 2% authorizing fee, donations, interest income, and any other local sources. For the month of December, the district recorded over $462,000 in revenue, over $425,000 in expenditures, for a net gain of $36,529 for the month. This increases our estimated fund balance from $2,518,137 to $2,565,403. The 45-day funding update in my January report next month will show an increase in revenue and an even larger net profit for the month. If you flip over to page 4, this report breaks out the district's budget and expenditures by department. Leadership has a budget of over $1.7 million, expenditures of over $828,000, with 51% remaining. Sponsor Performance has a budget of over $1.1 million, expenditures of over $544,000, with 51% remaining. Support and Implementation has a budget of over $1 million, expenditures of over $513,000, with 50% remaining. External Affairs has a budget of over $621,000, expenditures of over $295,000, with 52% remaining. And lastly, Financial Services and Human Resources has a budget of over $835,000, expenditures of over $415,000, with 50% remaining. And if you flip to the final page of my report, this is generated monthly by the State Department of Education, which includes all of the state funding calculated for the district. Of the $242.4 million of our current allocation, $236 million is under the state aid to classrooms line, which is equivalent to 97.38%. Madam Chair, this concludes my December financial report, and I respectfully request board approval at this time.
Thank you, Nick. We need a motion and a second to approve the December 2024 financial report as presented by staff.
I move that we approve the budget presented for December.
Thank you. Second. Thank you.
And just a question, so on the page 2, the spending differential, can you just help me with that, the 1.3 dollar change?
That was because last year we had a school close, and we were receiving money for state aided classroom revenue for that school, and that's the difference.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Of the contributions that we received, were those private or corporate, of the 2,000 or so dollars? How did we receive those monies?
That was actually revenue collected here at the district office, which we then utilized that money to purchase donations for Christmas.
Do we have a 501c3 or some type of, they have certain months that people can donate money. Are we set up to really push our contribution from donors?
So we are not tax exempt, but we can collect donations from donors, yes.
All right. Do we have maybe the potential to set up a
So
nonprofit?
right now, we're only looking at general fund. So like when we hold our Leaders Summit in the fall, we're collecting donations for that. That's recorded under a different fund.
Okay.
Madam Chair, can I speak?
Yes.
Yeah, this has been talked about for years with the district about setting up a separate 501c3. But we can already, through the current structure of the district, accept donations to support our schools and our kids. However, I think it's pretty clear from the General Assembly that they would like for us to stay in our state-appointed lane with the organization we have and not venture into other organizations.
Understood. Thank you.
And just for the record, other districts do have that. I actually remember going to that meeting when I worked here about.
Other districts do have, they do create foundations and so forth, but,
I'm not saying we should, I'm just mentioning that. I actually remember going to that meeting.
Yeah, but historically too, those organizations, if you look across the country, you tend to have issues with accountability, finances, and things like that. I think we should just stay in our lane and focus on kids first and closing the achievement gap and staying within the framework of the Charter Act.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may, I think our superintendent, I think our schools
are nonprofits, right?
That's correct.
And they can go out and.
And they do accept donations, and many of them are, like the Meyer Center, half of their budget comes from donations from people in the upstate.
Yes, sir.
Great point.
And we encourage that at the school level.
Yes.
Great point. Okay, any other questions, comments? We have a motion and a second. We've already been through discussion. The chair will now put the motion to a vote. All in favor of acceptance of the NIC's report for December 2024, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Madam Chair and board members, I would like to take a moment just to recognize 2 staff members on my team. Each spring, the South Carolina Association of School Business Officials, or SCASBO, offers 2 levels of certification: a certified school business specialist or a certified school business official. These certifications require anywhere from 20 to 40 hours in the class and 2 to 4 examinations ranging from topics of School Finance Accounting 101, financial reporting and auditing, budgeting, internal controls, and financial management, and lastly, capital and debt planning. I would like to take this time to recognize Nikki Templer in achieving the Certified School Business Specialist designation and Dawn Napper for achieving the Certified School Business Official designation. Please join me in honoring their hard work and accomplishments.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
We will now move into the superintendent's report, beginning with John R. Payne. With that R is important again now that we have, right?
Yes, ma'am, as John S. and I
Distinguished.
have experienced already.
Okay, thank you.
So, as part of my updates, I wanted just to share a few top lines. As you probably heard, the National Assessment of Education Progress, or NAEP, results from 2024's administration were recently released. NAEP is sometimes referred to as the nation's report card. It is a federal requirement for states to participate in grades 4 and 8 for reading and math. It's administered every 4 years. Grade 12 is also offered, as well as other subjects, but those are optionals for states to participate in. Students' performance compares their performance related to NAEP objectives, which are very similar to standards. And what NAEP does is it creates a way for comparability of states to determine in general how well are students learning across the United States of America. However, it's important to note that not all objectives are directly aligned to state standards. So, for example, every state has various standards, so whereas something may be taught in 4th grade here in South Carolina, measured on the NAEP, in another state that skill may not be taught until 5th grade. So there is some of that to consider as well. The 2024 results are relatively unchanged for South Carolina. Nationally, charters have higher performance, but as you will see as we go through this, there are and continue to be significant gaps and widening gaps for various subgroups. You'll see this for pretty much across the board. NAEP results for South Carolina, pretty much for 4th, 8th in reading, 4th, 8th in math. Relatively unchanged performance from 2020 to 2022 and 2000 for both, but again, significant gaps. One of the things that we explored was to look at the performance of students nationally for public charters compared to public schools. The graph that you see before you illustrates the average scores of students in public schools, public charters, as well as private schools. If you'll note, the first 2 bars, you can see at 4th grade math, the average score is 237 for public school, 236 for public charter schools, so that is not a statistical difference. You can see that we're on par, 272 in grade 8 for math in both public and public charter schools. With respect to reading, we are, for fourth grade reading, public schools on average score 214 on the assessment, and then public charters, the exact same thing for grade 8 in math. I call your attention, in your packet, you should have some additional graphs, and I'd just like to call your attention to a few of these, if I may. So the first page of those is are the slides that I have just presented to you. If you turn to the second page provides the data, or breakdown by race and ethnicity. And as you'll see in this, in general, in grades 4, for white students, you can see that on average, in public schools, white students in grades 4 score on average 247 compared to 250 in public charters. When you look at the performance of African American students in grades 4, you can see that's 220 for public schools, 221 for public charters. If you look right over at grade 8, you'll see that public charters are outpacing public schools. However, you'll note that those overall scores for white students and African American students are generally scoring lower, and that is a pattern across America and certainly here in South Carolina. You can see on the next page those same data, this time for reading, so you can compare and see what those two groups were. Those two groups were included for the purpose of this presentation because they reflect the majority of students across America and in South Carolina. The next page looks at the performance of students with disabilities in comparing, again, public charters to public schools, and you will note that in general, students with disabilities, although they perform much lower than their non-disabled peers, are outperforming in public charter schools compared to public schools. The next page provides those same data, but this time it's for students who come from economically disadvantaged families, and as you can tell, it's about the same, a little bit better for grades 4 in math, a little better in grade 4 for reading, and then you can see the results. So PIP students, despite them scoring lower, they tend to outperform in public charter schools. Moving along, you should see 4 pages. These are kind of the top one-pagers that NAEP produces for each state. The 4 pages are 4th grade reading, 8th grade reading, 4th grade math, and 8th grade math. The first that you'll look at there is the 4th grade math. Pretty much we are on par with the nation. Our average score for South Carolina was 238 compared to the nation at 237. That is up a little bit from 2022. And about 40% of our 4th grade students are scoring proficiency on NAEP, as opposed to 34% scoring proficiency on NAEP back when it was administered in 2022. And you can see in the middle part there, the middle left column, we're averaging about the same as about 32 other states. I do call your attention to the section in the bottom right, which underscores and shows the performance for subgroups. On average, African American students score 30 points lower. PIP students score 23% lower than their comparative peers. 8th grade math, again, very similar. We score out at about 268 compared to the nation at 272. You can see how we stack up in the middle section there against the other states. And in looking at subgroup performance for 8th grade math, you'll note that African Americans on average score 36 points lower, and PIP students score 30 points lower than their comparative group. When we examine performance in reading, again, it's very similar. We were 215 on average for South Carolina. The state was 214. And again, looking at the performance of subgroups, African American students scored 32 points lower on average, and pupils in poverty or students from economically disadvantaged scored 30 points lower compared to their peers. And finally, 8th grade reading, which is, again, just about the same, no statistical difference there. South Carolina's average score was 254 in 8th grade reading compared to 257 for the nation. That's up from, or that's the same as it was in 2022. And again, in looking at the subgroup disparity, African Americans on average score 26 points lower, and pupils in poverty score 23 points lower. So we wanted to make sure that we gave you some information about NAEP, NAEP has a lot of features on their website where you can look at assembling data in a host of ways. It's a really nice interactive website and presents just a dearth of data and information about NAEP.
Thank you. Are there any questions pertinent to this? I'm sure there are a lot of questions. If we had time. Yes.
You repeatedly said that minority students are scoring lower. Is there something that you all are attributing that to, or have you done anything to try to close the gap?
Yes, ma'am. So obviously, as Superintendent Neely, that is a big focus of our work. And as Ms. Farmer shared a little earlier, we are really encouraging our schools to pay more attention to the goal of the Charter Act, which is closing the achievement gap. We've begun examining that work. In fact, Josh Finley and Sarah Borey on my team, we have gone back multiple years, and we're beginning to look at achievement gaps by race, ethnicity, by pupils in poverty, and by disability. And that data will be, we will share that data with our schools through the mechanism of the AFO. So one, we're looking at the data, we're examining it, we're encouraging our schools to contemplate goals around this, or certainly activities to close that achievement gap. And I will say we do have a couple of schools in our portfolio that have inverse achievement gaps. One in particular where their pupils in poverty outperform pupils not in poverty. So we're examining those, and we want to learn from those places sort of some best practices in educating our children.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. So you'll be formulating, you're gathering now, but let us know what that is about.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's great. Any other comments, questions? I have a question. So the last color school is the private Catholic. Now I want to know what's going on with the Catholics. That's what I want to know. I really want to know.
Yes, ma'am, and I think looking at the history of NAEP, that tends to be a higher performing educational entity, just looking at the history. I had the fortune under Molly Spearman to sit on the National Assessment Governing Board for NAEP, and we examined all these data, we examined objectives, and we're trying to understand as well, and I think that, still kind of jury's out for some of our private schools.
Well, they have such a big, it's not like this named school in this city and this named school. It's a whole level of education opportunity. So I would like to ask us to look into that to see what we can learn from them, because my take is that they are very integrated with the goal of integration, racial integration in the Catholic schools. So I think we might be able to learn a lot from them, and even have an opportunity to meet some of their leaders, as you probably already have, because there's something pretty neat going on there, and it's probably more than a uniform, but I don't know.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Great
so,
point. Yes,
Madam Chair, if I may
Yes.
add, having an affiliation with Catholic schools, some of them do select, they handpick some of the kids from these poverty areas that they
gotcha.
know are going to be high-performing students.
It's at the front door.
Yes. And I'm not saying that for all,
Yeah.
but that is the ones that I know they select. So that's
Yeah,
a disparaging
that's a good-
statistic.
That's a good insight. That's a good insight.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
if I may.
Yes.
I just got a curious question, John, to help me with this. If we have schools in our district that are consistently having problems with minority students who are performing at a mediocre level, how do we, is there a penalty for that, or is there some type of professional development, technical assistance, or whatever that could potentially, how do we handle that? I'm just curious to know that.
So I think the first thing is really examining the data and understanding why and what's going on. And not only looking at context with, children's race or ethnicity, but also looking at, are they poverty? Do they have disability? And this is true for all students. I mean, as we look at these data, while we separate out in children with disabilities and children by race and ethnicities and children by gender and so on, they're all those things at once, right? And so I think there's just sort of a pattern where you see like children with disabilities, but also a minority. So you have to take all those variables into play oftentimes. So it's really diving into the data and understanding what that performance is, really understanding what they are committing to in their charter and making sure that they're adhering to that. We are trying to elevate as well by using the AFO to describe the achievement gaps that our schools may experience so that there's that more public awareness. Let us do more and use some of the things that are just good practices. High dosage tutoring, strong interventions, a really strong foundational core curriculum with a tiered support system for all students, and then a really robust system for students with disabilities to meet their needs so that they can have access to and make progress in the regular classroom themselves.
No, that's helpful. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you for this. Thank you
Yes,
very
ma'am.
much, John.
Next, I'd like just to briefly share our 2025 application cycle. As we informed you in November, the district received 21 letters of intent. As of February the 1st, we received 4 applications. One we've already talked about, which is the Hope City Charter School, which intended to apply to Richland School District 2. We also received an application for Midlands Acceleration Academy for a Richland County-based AEC. As you know, they have schools in the Low Country and over in Horry County. We also received an application for Rooted School, one to be located here in Columbia that's going to be an industry-focused learning 6 through 12 school, really focused on workforce development. And then lastly, Watson Middle, which is proposing 6 through 12, which would also be here in the Richland market. We, notwithstanding Hope City, the other 3s, we are continuing our work, our robust reviews, the first of which is our screeners, and then once they pass through the screening, then they go to the full review, then we take it from there. So that's just a word about where we are with the applicants for this cycle, and as you know, we will be bringing any recommendations to you prior to May 1st. A few final things. Again, we are undergoing, as Kristen was saying a little earlier, triaging our schools by looking at their goals. We are collaborating with Dr. Pugh on another workshop, and we're managing our pre-opening conditions and supporting our Year Zero schools. In terms of our data and accountability, we were successful yet again in submitting all of our schools and the district's annual report to the Department of Education by January 31st. We've also been working on the 90th day data collection, the CRDC, which is the civil rights data collection, dropouts collection as well. In terms of the Power School breach, I shared that information with you last month. We have continued to send resources and information that we have received from not only Power School, but the State Department of Education, and sort of where that is now. We have notified all of our schools. They should be notifying or already have notified their parents, and Power School is reaching out to the impacted parents, faculty, students, and others that may have been impacted to offer them credit monitoring through Experian. So they're in the process now of reaching out to the individuals whose private information was compromised in the breach. Madam Chair, that concludes my sponsor performance
Thank
updates.
you for all of that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So substantive and broad, too. Now, support and implementation by Emily Baker.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The gift that keeps on giving for this school year is the weather. So your monthly weather report. I just wanted to give you a couple of updates. So reminder that when a weather event happens anywhere across our state, which in January, as you know, was the snow. I don't know about y'all, but I was in 4 inches of ice for about 10 days. Yep. So when a weather event happens, we are reporting in real time to the State Department as required. So each closure, late start, early release, we report to the department in real time. Brad, Henry, and Brooke also report those closures on our website in real time. So we upkeep that, and we're kind of around the clock during those weather events. To give you an update, an overall year glance for weather reporting, we have 15 schools that have now exhausted all 5 of their e-learning days. So the state has allowed schools that apply and are approved to become e-learning days. We have many schools, most schools that are state approved for that, but it does cap them at 5. And as you think, we've had a lot of weather events across this year. So 15 schools have now exhausted those options. They may no longer, if there's another weather event that leads to closure, they're going to have to close. Okay, and our schools are aware of that. I've communicated directly with each of those 15 sites. They understand. The state is also tracking it each day. We do have 12 schools that are utilizing the local board waiver. So you remember a couple of months ago, I brought before you your approval to allow the local school boards to waive days 4, 5, and 6 as outlined and approved by the state. So we do have 12 schools currently that are utilizing that local board waiver. We have one school that we have submitted for a state board of education waiver, okay? That is for days 7, 8, and 9. We have one school, Lead Academy, that needs or is requesting day 7 to be waived. The last I've heard from the department, we are the first and only so far that has done that process. So we're waiting on the State Board of Education ruling on that, but we are updating these weekly, if not monthly.
May I ask a question about that?
You may.
When you say closed, you mean if they go outside these parameters, the school will be closed?
So what I
What does
mean
that
is
mean?
think back to when we were in school. If you had a snow day, you had a snow day.
Right,
So you were just
right.
home for a snow day. If you had a hurricane day, you had a hurricane day. With the e-learning, it kind of has allowed people to pivot and, okay, the actual school facility is closed, but you're learning from home. So the schools that have used their 5 days this school year, when they are closed, they're truly now closed. We're back to an old-fashioned snow day.
Right, and so is there any further dire consequence that we want to avoid?
There's
What
not a-
happens when you get to these limits, when a school, that's what I'm really asking.
Yes, so you must make up the days, okay? So as the state has outlined, days 1, 2, and 3, and this, take e-learning off of the table, but days 1, 2, and 3 must be made up. Our schools have inclement weather days required in their calendars that their boards approve each year, so they use those 3 days to make up. So if you are a true closure, a true hurricane day, a true snow day, you are making up those days. Because of all the weather events this year, remember we came in front of you with that day 4, 5, and 6 allowability
Yep.
for the local
Yep.
and 7,
School.
8, and 9.
Yep.
But the schools must make up, if they use closure days 1, 2, and 3, those must be made up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that review.
You're welcome.
Please continue.
Okay. The next, yes, sir.
Is the school, and again, it may be very legitimate, but, I think because the school should be made to make up the day if it's in the calendar. Now, if you go outside that calendar and use all the days, then people have vacations, they have all that. It's very difficult, because attendance will be terrible if you do that. But I don't think I think children, students need to learn to go to school and not try to get around the rules.
Correct.
And therefore, but this request is because they've exhausted everything and they
Yes.
need another day.
Yes.
But there's only one in the whole state of South Carolina, is what you're saying?
That has gotten to the point of the state board approval. There
Okay.
are, I will say, I do know that we have some schools that were waiting for the winter to end before they go
Yeah,
through that
and
process, and I know
yeah.
there are also some districts. So I don't anticipate by the end of the year that we're the only one.
No.
But the last I heard from Deputy Superintendent Matthew Ferguson, we were the sole entry so far. That was a school in Greenville that was greatly impacted. Their facility was impacted from Helene.
Elaine? Yep, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, the next is an update on corrective action plans. We have a district corrective action plan open right now with Sea Island Heritage Academy. As you remember, a couple of months ago, I let you know that they were under a corrective action plan. There were 8 deliverables of that plan. They did not meet 2 of them, so that has led to a district corrective action plan they have 2 deliverables for that we are tracking right now. The next is Green Charter School of the Low Country is under a district corrective action plan. They had a state complaint pertaining to special education, which led to a letter of resolution. So our DCAP is to support and ensure, doing our due diligence, that they are meeting the requests of the state from the letter of resolution. The last is Careless Online Academy is currently under a district corrective action plan with 8 deliverables pertaining to assessment and Power School. And unfortunately, since you received your board packet, this Monday, Careless Online Academy also has an area of concern open pertaining to their graduation candidates and their current Power School data inputs. So we are supporting each of these schools through each of those items, and we're tracking those due dates. The final thing, to end on a happier note, is on February 4th, we welcomed 8 graduate professors from Clemson University in the office. They facilitated a full-day training to 32 participants from across our district. They did their full-day PD was on improvement science, okay? So improvement science is a methodology to identify and solve problems in schools. So if you think about a problem of practice, Clemson walked them through that day. What does that cycle look like in a school? So they focused on things like data analysis, the importance of collaboration, empowering your educators, and things like that. So that was a great day. We also use it as a kickoff to our Click Next cohort registration. So I was kind of the commercial girl, came in at the end of the day that said, did you love it? Okay, if you love it, here's how you get more. So we funded this collaboration with Clemson through Title II funds, and then our next Click cohort will also be funded through Title II funds. The feedback was fabulous. Everybody essentially said, let me learn more, and I will be back. So I think the biggest plus of this day was the ratio of facilitators to participants, having those 8 Clemson professors able to go shoulder to shoulder or in a very small group and meet schools to analyze their own data in front of them and walk them through a problem of practice improvement science cycle was very powerful. So we appreciate our collaboration with Clemson.
They could do that in like real time, pretty quick. Is that what you're saying? They see it, or did they have to get it ahead of time, or they were able to?
So the Clemson staff, they did not have the data up front.
So they could just take that and go?
Yes. So based on what they hear, they're walking them through. It's more, improvement science isn't necessarily a protocol. It's not that rigid, but it's a cycle. So they walked them through and gave them the overview of all of those best practices. They left with the resources so they can now implement improvement science in their own buildings based on their specific problems that they need to identify and solve.
Good. Thank you. Any questions?
That concludes my report for you.
Thank you, Emily, so much. Thank you. Now we move to External Affairs. Brad Henry.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. I wanted to provide you an update with a few of the district's legislative priorities, which I brought to your attention at the January meeting. Since I last appeared before you, I'm happy to report that some progress has started to we've started to make some progress on these things. First, access to the state bus fleet. As you know, transportation is a huge issue for our district and charter schools all across the state. We believe this could be a game changer, getting transportation access to families, especially in rural areas. We want all of our kids to have the same opportunities for transportation as kids in regular school districts. A couple of weeks ago, we presented our budget before the House Budget Subcommittee, and members of the subcommittee expressed interest in exploring a transportation pilot program with us. That has led to meetings and conversations with the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee and the Department of Education on what a pilot program may look like. I do want to stress this is not a done deal, but significant progress has been made. And we have several meetings set up that we're going to really get into what our schools, some of our schools are doing transportation now. What are they doing that's working really well? How could we expand that for our other schools that need some help with that? Secondly, military child preference for charter schools. This is a bill that we worked on last session, made it all the way to the finish line, and was hung up in the last couple of days. This bill was reintroduced, a very similar bill with very, very minor changes this session. Last week, the House Education Subcommittee and full committee voted on this bill, and it's now on the House calendar on the House floor. So we're hoping for some quick progress to be made on that. I mentioned a couple of things that are not our priorities necessarily, but just things that are big issues in the education space in the legislature in South Carolina right now. I mentioned to you last month the Education Savings Account bill, or ESA bill, or some call it the voucher bill. This bill would give qualifying families around $7,000 a year to send their kids to a private school and paid by education lottery funds. There are also some stipulations in there for charter schools that can access some of the funds. This bill has now passed the full Senate and sits in the House, but on the House side, we're expecting significant changes. as it relates to the funding stream, the things that will be covered, eligibility, things like that. Also, the one more bill I'll mention to you, the Educator Assistance Act, which is a bill that's been around for a couple of years. It's aimed at teacher recruitment and retention. It has passed the full House and is headed to the Senate now. So those are just a couple of things we're keeping a close eye on because it has direct impacts on our district. And then, as you know, community outreach is another kind of cornerstone of our external affairs team here at the district. Our team has, over the month of January and the first part of February, been participating in a number of events around the state, and I just wanted to share a few of those with you today. The first picture you see, which is the first ever Kids First School Choice Expo, which was held in North Charleston earlier this month. That's Dawn from our team there, and then you can also see John Payne kind of photobombing in the background in a blue sweater. This is where all of our Charleston schools, 7 of our Charleston schools came together for the first time to hold a joint enrollment event. All of the schools walked away. The goal of the event was to spread awareness about enrollment and actually get new families enrolled. I'm happy to report all the schools walked away with families that they've been in contact with and are working towards getting more students enrolled for next school year. The second photo there in the middle is a Columbia School Choice or a Columbia School Fair that was hosted by the Palmetto Promise Institute. It took place at New Brooklyn Baptist Church over in West Columbia. Charter schools, traditional public schools, private schools, I think even individuals from home schools and things like that were all invited to participate. This was another event where everyone kind of comes together just to promote what their school model offers for families, kids and families, and the opportunities that they offer for kids around the state. The third photo is at the SCABC conference in North Charleston that takes place in February. Dr. Mills is pictured there with Dr. Michelle McDonald of Liberty, who is our district teacher of the year for this year. On a side note, SCABC also has a new executive director that we're looking forward to getting to know better and work with. Madam Chair, this concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions y'all have.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Pope.
How would vouchers benefit the public charter school? If public charter schools are public, so how would vouchers be used?
There are some stipulations within the bill that say that you can, if you're in a traditional public school, you can get tutoring and some other services from charter schools, and you can use the funds to pay for that. It's not like a scholarship to a charter school or anything like that, but it's basically services, and they're all related to mainly after-school activities, tutoring, things like that.
Not if you're in a public school, if you're using an education savings account.
Right.
Yeah, if you're using an ESA,
Yeah.
can use the funds for charter school services if you can establish a contract with them. That's normally how that works.
Yes.
It's done in states like Arizona.
Yeah, because our schools are free, to your point, Dr. Pope, they're free public charter schools. What happens?
Taxpayer funded.
Yes, taxpayer funded. Yeah, there you go. I know in Georgia, where we resided for 20-some years, they would take those monies into a private school instead of going to, right, so they offset it that way. So we'll just be mindful of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Brad, I want to just commend you and the whole structure of our district for having sending yourself out, is what I'm saying, being there, knowing the people that make those decisions, and being substantive in what we're advocating for. And, a bus for us is that I would say is one of the biggest prohibitors for children getting to where they need to be in our schools. And you can't walk. You can't walk.
That's right. No doubt it would be a game changer. We conducted a survey of all of our schools and to get their feedback on what we can propose to the Department of Education. And I mean, transportation, it seems, is the number one hindrance to access for families. Rural areas, but also urban and suburban areas.
In your discussions with them, is there any concept of ratio of how far, the rural scenario versus the urban scenario? They can see a difference there. I mean, do you think as this movement happens, it will maybe begin in the rural areas? Is that your feeling or thinking of how they would approach it? Or if we start, where would we start best?
Yeah, as we're looking at a pilot program, we'd really like to do, have a rural portion of that and an urban or suburban portion to that. Because I think we can learn a lot from both. Obviously, the rural areas have a lot more needs and things like that and overall, but the urban areas too. I mean, kids and families, need that transportation. It's a little bit different of an equation to figure out in both places is what we're finding out. And so we'd really like to look at both of those areas, maybe have one school in each area to pilot this program.
It's an essential. I mean, just look how the human body's built. We just can't, we have to get from A to B to benefit from B. And that bus for us, I think, is hard to, it's hard to walk away from that and say, no, that's not needed. So
That's right.
Anyway, I appreciate all that y'all are doing, Dr. Ellis and everything.
And I'd like to make a comment
Yes.
on behalf of the South Carolina Alliance of Black School Educators. We do appreciate the support and the participation from the public charter school, and we missed you at the conference this year.
I know that's a great event, and I was actually in North Charleston that weekend and was hoping to make it by, but Dr. Mills represented us well, and we had several members from our schools there, so we enjoy participating in that event.
Just to piggyback on the chair's comment on the bus thing, I think that's excellent work. Is the pilot different from the authority that the State Department currently has with regard to bus? Is that two different things?
We're kind of working through that. So I mean, technically, the state could waive the State Department of Education has full authority over the state bus fleet. They could basically wave a magic wand and grant school bus service for all of our kids. We know that's not going to happen because that would be a tremendous dollar sign attached to that. So we're looking at what would it look like if we utilize their buses, what would it look like if we utilize other buses and other drivers.
Got it.
I think even in some other states, the way they do it, they have the same routes for traditional schools and private schools and charter schools where they pick up if you're passing by the kid's house, they pick them up and then they drop them off at the schools afterwards. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we're quite there, but that's certainly part of the discussion.
Sure. Well, thanks for that. Good job.
It's
Absolutely.
not going away till it's fixed.
That's right.
That's right.
We're not going to let it.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Emily Paul. Thank you.
Good morning. All right, this will be just a very brief overview of all the work that's going on for the strategic plan. Obviously, there are many, many things that you've just heard going on in the district, so this is just a quick snapshot of the things that are aligned directly to the strategic plan. So just a few days ago, we deployed school board and school leader surveys, and so those surveys are designed to gather valuable insight into things going on with boards and schools. Some of the questions were designed a little bit in a way to educate the survey taker a little bit on some different things that we wanted them to understand, like the Charter Act and how often they should be accessing their charter, things like that. But the information we get back from those surveys will help us design professional development for those school boards and leaders. We are working on a parent and family survey. That work kind of paused a little bit because of the Power School breach. We were a little concerned about pulling parent contact information out of there, so we are kind of reassessing on a very large scale how do we deploy that survey safely and making sure that we're protecting all of our parent and family information. John S. Payne and his team are working on a board summit for school board capacity building, so that will be here in May. We are inviting our school board members in. I think this is the first time potentially that we are doing this all at once in one day, and they're going to have just a rich day of professional development. The State Department will also be coming in and providing some of their required training during that day, but most of it will be provided by the district staff. And then finally, Brad's team is developing a strategic plan one-pager to support our strategic communications. I think this is going to be really helpful for our stakeholders to see what our priorities are in our strategic plan and begin to understand how all of the work that we're doing aligns and kind of the direction that we're going in. Any questions about that work?
Any questions? No?
Okay, I have 2 friendly reminders for you. Your statement of economic interests for the Ethics Commission, those are due no later than March 30th at noon. You should be getting an email from them with a link to fill out your statement. So please keep an eye out for that, and we'll continue to be in touch with you about those, but please keep an eye out, because if you don't get that link, we need to get with them and make sure that you get what you need. So we will be in touch on that. And then also coming up in March will be Superintendent Neely's evaluation, and so I will be working with Mr. Davis to kind of show him how that works and help him deploy that to y'all. It will be the same format that we used last year with the virtual link that then will be compiled for y'all to discuss and decide your final evaluation.
Good. That's great.
Just point of information, so with the Ethics Commission filing, it's the same username and password, right? You can just, yeah, okay. So you don't even, they'll send you a link, but just use the same link that you've used every year.
Yes.
You log in and you just start a new report on the same thing.
Start a new report for the correct year, yes. But it is the same login information.
It's becoming easier, not because of me. It became shorter, in my view.
The problem is we don't get reminders and.
Yeah, that was the problem. Yeah, no, me too. I'm $100.
Yeah, no,
I just
it's a
got a
pain.
letter from them
It's a pain. No, it's a pain.
saying that
Yeah.
I need to find out about, why it wasn't done timely last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was taken care of, but I got another letter last week.
Oh, okay, well, let's talk afterwards and we can figure out what's
Okay.
going on there. Yep, but you will receive plenty of reminders, I promise.
Thank you.
Just make sure you use my email, because I don't have the one that's set up for.
Okay, I will note that too. Let's talk afterwards.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
you. Now for our superintendent's comments.
Yeah, good morning. It's still morning, and we're being efficient and effective. So I appreciate it. Just a few things, and then I'll get into the slide presentation. First of all, Emily Paul and Emily Baker, they're working on their EDS at Clemson University. And as part of their project this semester, they have to observe this board, which they do every month. But they also have to observe other school boards. And I'm their mentor in this process. And they shared with me some of their thoughts this past week during our check-ins. And I'm not going to get specific about the school boards, but it makes me realize how appreciative we are of you all and the work that you do. For those of you that have been superintendents or maybe served on other school boards, you know that it is different here. There's civility, and we like each other, and we love kids. And there's a lot of respect that is shown among all of you on the dais, but also with the staff. And I just think that we have the right tone that allows us to be very productive. In examining what goes on around the state, it's not so much the case. And so I think we're all very blessed and fortunate that we conduct ourselves the way that we do. And I think that really speaks to the culture of the organization. So thank you to our board for being great civil servants in South Carolina. The voucher, I'm just going to touch on a few things real quickly, kind of my speed list, just listening to the conversation. Obviously, we support, parental choice for all kids. I do hope that in the transportation discussion that maybe the House could have as part of that debate, what would it look like for charter school students to have access to some of the voucher money for transportation? Last year, the voucher bill included $700 for voucher students to have transportation. We've been begging for transportation for 26 years, and then this year it's unlimited out of the $7,000 proposed. So I guess my point is, if we're for all children and for all choice, and we know that for public school students, access is an issue. If we didn't have a need for a bus system, then why do we have school buses on our roads every day? And I know from running a charter school in Greenville, 50% of our students at the Meyer Center, they needed a bus to get to school because they were coming from 5 and 6 different counties. So I'm hoping that the House of Representatives will explore what would that look like for charter school students to have access to at least maybe a transportation stipend if we're not successful with a pilot program where we fund buses. So I just wanted to share some of those thoughts and ideas. I mean, while we're having these conversations, let's put them all on the table, is the way we look at it. In terms of the nation's report card, I think it's fair to say that if the nation had to go home to their parents, things would not be so good. We as a nation and a state are failing our kids. And I think we just have to be blunt about it. I do appreciate, though, that what this district is doing, and I think the data shows, we are continuing to rise above the state and the nation as a charter sector. And but we still could be better, a lot better. And so that's why we do things like the professional development and the CLIC program with the College of Education at Clemson. That's why we support our schools through the technical support and the support on the LEA side. And that's why, we hold our schools accountable to their charter and ensure they have charter goals that are SMART goals that are aligned with the mission and vision of the Charter Act and the goal of closing the achievement gap. You saw some photos of Perry. All of you, please keep Perry in your prayers. He had a scheduled medical procedure, and he's out for a couple weeks, so please keep him in your thoughts and prayers. And then on those state ethics reporting, it's kind of that little thing that gets us every year. But please take care of that. And then the issue with the fine from last year due to the South Carolina Ethics Commission not notifying anybody here at the district, just get with Marlene and Emily Paul after the meeting, and we'll make sure and take care of that. All right, so we continue our school visits, and we had a great visit down in North Charleston at Compass Collegiate, and those two ambassadors were awesome. So I visited their 4th grade class, and their class is actually going to be coming up here in March for a tour. We're going to take them over to see the governor, the General Assembly, and talk about South Carolina state government and how that works. And then a couple of the students, their teacher's going to decide which ones are going to be on the radio show, and we're going to do the podcast. And so we're really excited about having these 4th graders. And I mean, I'm telling you, I knew when I walked in that classroom, this was a vibrant group of young people. And I just kind of threw it out there, and then I told the staff when I got back here what I did. But really excited about having those kids come up here. And then Carolina Shores over Myrtle Beach. The young man right in the middle with the Under Armour sweatshirt with the hat is DeAndre Carr, and I gave him one of the district challenge coins. DeAndre told me when I visited that he had made a decision to join the United States Navy, and that upon graduation this spring he'll be going to boot camp up in the Great Lakes. So really want to just take a moment to thank those young people that are 17 and 18 years old who are making a decision to choose that route after high school. And so really proud of DeAndre, and I have no doubt he's going to be great in the Navy. He's a very determined young man and knows what he wants to do in life. I had one of the things that I really want to do more of, I've done some of it over the last 5 years, but while I'm out visiting our schools, I'm also going to stop and visit superintendents from other districts because, those relationships are important. I mean, we're all in this for kids. And I stopped by Darlington County School District, and I did school visits with Dr. Tim Newman. And he's become a good friend the last 5 years. He used to serve in Orangeburg, and he and I had a great visit. And it was interesting, too. It was just good for me to see how other superintendents visit schools and how they interact with their teachers and school leaders and kids. And you can always learn. We're always learning, right? And then down on the bottom there, you can see I testified a couple weeks ago at the House Ways and Means K through 12 subcommittee, and that's Chairman Erickson sitting there next to me. And she already had a list of questions a mile long when I finish talking. And she loves charter schools. She loves what we're doing. But I appreciate her thoughtful questions and you know, it gives us really a chance to talk about how we're doing, what we're doing, and to really promote our schools and our kids. And then you've heard us mention a couple of times, we had 34 school level personnel in the building for the CLIC problem of practice program, and some of you might recognize some of these folks. To my left in the picture is Dr. Clark, but you see Dr. Kelly Pugh there. Many of you know Kelly, former superintendent, and then Dr. Betty Bagley, who's in there as well, and she serves on the Pickens County School Board and served on this board many, many years ago. In fact, she told me the other day when she was here she'd like to come back and serve on the board again. She would be great. But really, really appreciate our collaboration with the College of Education at Clemson University. And of course, we're moving forward with the PhD program at Coastal Carolina, and we're still exploring ways to partner with Carolina and our other colleges and universities. I feel like this year have made great strides in terms of our relationship with the school choice office at the Department of Education. They've got a full team there now, and I think they have better capacity to really be able to be more engaged with us at a local level. And so really have appreciated those opportunities to get with them and really be transparent on both sides about what's going on with these schools, especially these new schools, these Year Zero schools that are getting the P&I grant. And we had a real good collaborative meeting with them last week and all the other authorizers. And then I had a good meeting with Dr. Daryl Johnson of SCASB, and I was telling Dr. Pope, you know, Daryl, I mean, that guy's full of personality. I mean, he really is. He's written a book. They didn't put that in the book. That's the title. And it talks about all the things they don't tell you is about being a school leader and a school administrator. But I think Daryl's going to bring great new energy to SCASB. And he's fully supportive of Dr. Pope, and we're really excited about the opportunity to really do more with him and the organization in the future. We talked about a few ideas, and he's really all in on it. So, and he told me, he said, look, if you're not for school choice, you're going to be left at the station. And so we're really appreciative and excited about that opportunity. The SCASA Superintendent's Roundtable was last Thursday, and Emily actually shadowed me there and got to see firsthand how the superintendents kind of govern themselves and have discussions about policy and politics. And some of the top line issues that were discussed there was that teacher transparency bill, the issue with teacher contracts and the need for there to be more transparency for teachers. You know, many times teachers are signing contracts, yet their district has not passed a budget and they don't know what they're going to make. I mean, who else in America would do something like that? And so really empowering teachers more. And I feel strongly about that. I think if we're going to hire the best teachers from around the country to come to South Carolina, we need to pay them more, and we need to treat them like professionals. And part of that starts with those contracts. And then the other part of the discussion that always brings great energy is when they bring up the South Carolina High School League and sports. And a lot going on about NIL with high school athletes. I mean, that's here. It's coming. You already see it in Texas and other big states. You're going to have high school athletes making more than superintendents. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic. And then, you know, transfers, what does that look like? But I will say there was one superintendent that stood up and said the truth. And I've been kind of waiting on that because, you know, charters get unfairly blamed for recruiting students, you know, and I still believe parents make choices, but at the end of the day, she stood up and said, you know, look, let's be honest. Recruiting's been going on in high school sports forever. And then other superintendents stood up and said, you are right. And some of the deans of the superintendent who have been around 45, 50 years, they were like, look, it has been going on, but, you know, we need a level playing field for everybody and do what's right for kids and their families. So last week you received a communication from me about the Parent Advisory Council, the PAC. And this is our effort to really reach out to parents in our district, which is our statutory obligation, to communicate with them on a regular basis. And it's something we really haven't done. We've advocated for parents over and over, and on the new funding formula, transportation and facilities and all those things. But we've never been this focused on one particular group of parents, and that is our parents of students with disabilities. We've grown in our district just in 5 years by 63% with students with disabilities. And as you know, that student group are the ones that have the greatest gap and challenge in the achievement gap. And being a parent of a child with a disability is very challenging, and many of our parents don't feel like they have a voice, and there's things that they know about their own child and about their child's educational experience that they could share to the district that we could then transfer into knowledge at the state level with our policymakers to influence policy, funding, and things like that. And so the Parent Advisory Council is unique. We're the only statewide school district to have a Parent Advisory Council, and one of only 2 in the whole state. Lexington County School District 1 has a Parent Advisory Council. And so we're really honored. We hope to actually collaborate with Lexington 1 on that, so we can share best practices. But we really want to be able to channel 4,000 parents of students with disabilities' voices into policy changes at the state level and to really advocate for them. This is not a complaint center, an ombudsman, complaint center. This is all about, ideas. I really think parents are like little think tanks. Incubators of ideas. And so we really want to tap into their voices and help that inform our state policymakers and see if we can't change things in a positive direction, because South Carolina's not doing well for this population. So, while we've continued to harp and raise the amount of money for our students of poverty, now it's time to also have a concerted effort to do the same thing for our students with disabilities. You should have in your packet a copy of the news article that came out this morning in the Post and Courier. Additionally, I did a LinkedIn post this morning about this, and you'll be hearing more about it. But just so you know the process, we're going to be working with Stan Davis, our good friend, and Stan is actually going to be the one driving the conversation with parents through electronic means, through listening tours and forums around the state hosted by our charter schools. And he's going to take all these parent voices and do just like he does for our strategic plan, and take that information and data and put it into an actionable plan. And so really excited about this. We'll be keeping you updated on that. And then the last thing I'll say, and then we've got some recognitions. Tomorrow's Valentine's Day, and I didn't bring anybody a Valentine, but I have a Valentine message. It kind of goes back to what I opened with about just respect for one another. But you all are my Valentine, and I love everybody in this room. And
we know that's true.
Well, it is true, and I say that because our work comes out of our heart for children. We're all here. We all have different ideas about how this might work. We're not all just alike, but one thing we do share in common is a heart for children and for each other, and I really do believe that makes this place really special. And so I just want to tell all of you I love you. And I hope you all have a wonderful Valentine's. At this time, we've got a presentation, but before we do that, I would like for Nikki and Dawn to come up so we can get a photo. So, Madam Chair Lady, you come up. We're going to meet at the top. Let's get a photo with them and give them another round of applause. And then I'm going to turn it over to Emily Paul, who's going to do the next part of the program. One thing before we do that, guys, I'm sorry. Emily just reminded me. We are going to have to send out another communication about the presidential executive orders that are out. And so I was going to have Eric come up, or just right there, just make mention of what this is about, Eric.
Right. Just do this very quickly. You all probably have seen in the news, there are 4 or 5 executive orders that have come out that speak directly to schools. They range in topics, and we don't need to go through them, but the important part is that they link directly to federal funding that's available for our schools. You've probably seen some programming has already been canceled and changed at school level. And so we're going to be sending out some communications to our schools and reminding them that these executive orders and changes at the federal level, while they're a little bit uncertain right now, they are already in effect. They are already having effects. And it's important that we pay attention and that they are making changes to their curriculums and their policies. And this ranges everywhere from sports to their day-to-day programming, to the affinity groups that they may have at their schools. So just wanted to make you all aware that those communications are going out. We may have some questions about it. There have been questions already about them. So just wanted to make sure you were aware that those communications are going out. We're going to try to provide guidance as that comes. This will not be something where we're being punitive or enforcement. This is something where we're being supportive and suggesting these are areas you need to look at and trying to identify these things in a proactive way before they get phone calls from people who are trying to enforce it.
All right, any questions about that? We'll make sure you get a copy of the email with all the documentation attached to it. All right, so this time we're going to ask Nikki and Dawn to come up. We're going to get a photo, and then we've got an announcement. Let's give them a round of applause.
All right, we are going to be celebrating an employee's 5-year anniversary. So Nick Michael, come on up. If you know Nick well, this is the exact last place he wants to be, so I'm going to make this painless. Go on up, go stand.
Congratulations, Nick. Thank you.
Today we are recognizing Nick Michael, Deputy Superintendent of Financial Services, for his 5 years of service to the district. Nick joined us in early 2020 at a time when the district's financial operations left much to be desired. He worked swiftly and tirelessly to turn lemons into lemonade, training up a highly dedicated and capable staff, putting policies and procedures in place to ensure compliance. In his 5 years with the PCSD, Nick has stabilized our financial services department, consistently turning out clean and on-time audits and putting the district in the best financial position it has ever been in. His team emphatically shares their appreciation of Nick's leadership to ensure they're cross-trained and can support each other, and his colleagues appreciate his matter-of-fact, transparent responses when it comes to finances. Nick, thank you for your service. We appreciate what you have accomplished in the last 5 years.
Let's give Nick another round of applause. So I was a consultant to the district when you were hired, and I'll never forget the first board meeting that Nick came to, and he was being asked some really hard questions, and of course, he didn't have anything to do with all the problems. And I was looking at him, I'll never forget, because the staff used to sit to the side, for those of you that were here, and I was sitting over there, and I just remember looking at Nick, and I'm like, this guy, he is not going to stay. If he stays, he's crazy, because I'm getting out of here too. But the bottom line is, Nick came here with great experience. I think he really took this on as a project. I mean, I really do believe that. And A rescue project, yeah. But it's been, job well done, success. I don't know that there's another school district in South Carolina that was where we were 5 years ago and where we are today. I haven't looked at the numbers, but I would say that based on all the metrics that we use here, that is true. And it's all because of your hard work, your leadership. I mean, you have a great team. They all love you. And if they didn't, they would tell me. And so we just really appreciate your commitment to the district, but more importantly, to putting all kids first. So thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I remember the day he came, and I want to tell you, the last guy before you, the last time I saw him, he was headed to Georgia, where I think he really was living the whole time. The blonde-headed guy. He did have hair, but that was probably his only big attribute. That's what I could tell. But I just want to tell you that I have a name I want to give you, because your mother gave you the name Nick, and for us, you have given us the greatest gift of financial soundness and a clean audit. And that happened around near the Christmas time, so I'm going to call you Saint Nick. That's what I've decided. So you've given us a great present that will continue on and on because of the standards that you bear. And the staff that you have, I mean, you've just really selected everyone well, and they all work and do have a focused mind just like you do. Maybe different personalities, none of them have beards. But anyway, I know it's a great group, and it's wonderful to have such concrete just accuracy for our district, and something that we can be proud of. So thank you very much for that. And I am going to call you St. Nick. Okay.
So, Madam Chairman, unless there's any questions, that's the end of my brief.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry. I didn't.
That's the end of my report.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Now that we have one more task to accomplish, and that is adjournment. We need a motion and a second to adjourn this February 13th meeting. We wish you all a happy Valentine's. Start giving love things today. And I'll look for a motion and a second on this issue.
So move, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, discussions? All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you all.
And lunch is being served. So come join us for lunch.